on their booth at the Castro Street Fair. Reverend Peter, Eli, Reverend Vincent, Alex, maybe, Steve, whomever else he gathered together. And let's just see them as really communicating the wonderful spiritual healing ideas in A Course in Miracles that we love and that we practice and that we embrace and that we teach here at Community Miracle Center. And we see a healing going on with the people, and we see them coming through the doors here afterwards to get more information about A Course in Miracles and Community Miracle Center. And it's a great project. I really want to thank Reverend Kelly for doing all that she did to help get that booth together. I saw a picture of it. It looks awesome. So after service, if you got a moment, go out. I hear it's just right around the corner on Castro Street. So my talk today is the challenge of growth. And growth is a challenge. And we're doing some things at Community Miracle Center that are growth and that are a challenge. And you see it, we have all this new audio equipment. We have an audio table there, a little sound booth of some sort that Reverend Kelly has put together. We got an audio mixer and everything is being mic'd and videoed. The reason why we're doing this is because starting next week, this is like a test run, but starting next week, we should be broadcasting the audio from our service, the entire service, and broadcasting it on a format called, through Pal Talk and through ACIM Gather. We are going to be the Sunday service that ACIM Gather has live on Pal Talk. It's an internet thing every Sunday. So it's great, and hopefully it will enable us to reach many more people. And people all over the world actually can log into Pal Talk. It's a free service, and you log into Pal Talk and then you just click on the room, ACIM Gather, and then you will hear our Sunday service. But this has been a challenge for some people. It's been a challenge for some people in our own community. There is this idea, and I want to acknowledge it, that people come here and they share here, and we know our community and we know the people that are here. But, are people going to share not knowing who's listening because it's being broadcast? And, some people have feelings about that and don't feel real secure about that. We've had feelings of people who don't know how they feel about even their video being recorded and it getting put up on YouTube the way we have been doing it since the beginning of the year, putting miracle shares and the Sunday lectures up on YouTube. And there's some people that have problems with that, or they just don't know if they want that done. So we have people who are hesitant now to speak and to do miracle shares because they know it's being recorded, and that same thing is kicking in now, knowing that our audio from the service is going to be broadcast. So it's all change. And change is hard, and change is difficult, and growth is change, so growth is frequently hard and growth is frequently difficult. Course in Miracles says many stand guard over their ideas because they want to protect their thought systems as they are, and learning means change. Change is always fearful to the separated ones because they cannot conceive of it as a change toward healing the separation. They always perceive it as a change towards further separation because the separation was their first experience of change. So this is a real interesting idea. I just want to just focus in on it just for a minute or two. What A Course in Miracles is telling us right here is that our first experience of change was when we separated from the divine. And that was startling and scary and painful. There we were, in oneness, in bliss, in love, perfectly communing with the totality, with our Creator, with our Source, with all our brothers and sisters who were one with us. And the separation happened, and it was scary. And that was our first experience of change. So change now, what A Course in Miracles just told us, is always remembered as that first change that we had. And so there's always an element of fear with the change. And we tend to look at these things and judge these things incorrectly Because when fear comes up, the instinct, of course, is to retreat from it. And when fear comes up, the instinct is to think that somehow we are making a mistake. Course in Miracles tells us that some of our greatest advances you have judged as failures, and some of your deepest retreats you have evaluated as success. So that's something that I always really try to remember, and it helps me a lot. Just to remember that we can't really judge how we're doing, and we frequently judge incorrectly. We frequently think we're making great progress, maybe even spiritual progress, maybe material progress, maybe progress in our relationships, and maybe we're not making progress at all. And we sometimes think that things aren't going well at all, that things are actually failing, and we're retreating, and actually then is when we are making the greatest advances that we could possibly make. So it's a challenge, and we can't evaluate it. And I do it all the time. I evaluate things all the time. And I evaluated some of the resistance that we got to some of the new things we were doing with the audio, with the broadcasting, with the YouTube, and how people were resisting it. I judged those things as not a failure, let's say, but a problem, and something had gone wrong. But what I got when I turned it over to the Holy Spirit was that it's not a problem. It's not that something has gone wrong. It's just that resistance that we have to do something new, to change, and to grow. As a matter of fact, it probably indicates that something very right is going on, because you're meeting that resistance. If you weren't pushing the envelope, that wouldn't be happening. So growth is always pushing the envelope, so we are growing. And we are pushing the envelope with all this audio that we are doing, and with getting ready to broadcast next week on ACIM Gather, and with all the YouTube things that we do. The challenge of growth is obviously that it doesn't frequently feel like growth. It frequently feels not so good. And so the challenge is to keep on what you're doing as you're guided by the Holy Spirit, even though you're pushing through some things that just don't feel that good. We had a board of directors meeting here last week after service. I posed some things to the board of directors. Some people on the board were challenged by it, didn't like it all that much. And again, I feel that. I get a little upset by it. I think maybe I did something wrong. And again, I go within to the Holy Spirit. No, I followed my guidance. I presented the agenda the way I was guided to present the agenda. These things are important for us to look at. And the fact that there's a little pushback and a little uncomfortableness by some of the other members is really just an indication that we're going forward in the way that we need to go forward. And so the challenge of growth is to keep moving in that direction, even though you are experiencing resistance. So I challenged the board in many ways, and I challenged them that Reverend Kelly and myself cannot do everything here that we need to do, that we want to do, that Holy Spirit is calling us to do, and that the board needs to get more involved in some things. And it was difficult for some people. We also, I'm putting it out there, we need a sound technician. And considering the size of our congregation, it seems like, where are you going to get a sound technician? I don't know. But I'm just going to put it out there. If there are any local people that would like to help us and really be here on a committed basis to help us with all the new audio, please come forward. Just put it out there to the universe. Come forward through the door, even if you haven't heard this. But if we all hold that idea, somebody will come forward. I need somebody out there, doesn't have to be local, that will be monitoring things on ACIM Gather, so that at certain appropriate times during the service, they can put some text, because there's a continual scrolling text thing that goes on and on Pal Talk, and we want to put certain things there at certain times, including the lyrics to our songs, so they can sing along at home, and other things like that. So please, if there's somebody out there that would like to help us with that, we really could use that. So we're in a branch in the road, I believe. Community Miracle Center has to grow, and it has to do these things in order to be viable, in order to serve the people that are really here for us to serve. And as I said, I feel like we're a branch in the road. And A Course in Miracles has a wonderful teaching about that. It says when you come to the place where the branch in the road is quite apparent, you cannot go ahead. You must go either one way or the other. And there is no part of the journey that seems more hopeless and futile than standing where the road branches and not deciding on which way to go. So that's another challenge of growth. As you're growing, as you're going through life, you're moving along your road, and then there's a branch, and you have to go one way or the other. You can't go forward anymore. You have to decide. You can't go the same way that you were going. And if you just don't move, you're going to be hopeless, and it's going to seem futile. So you have to decide on which way to go with the help of the Holy Spirit, and then you have to go that way, knowing your guidance, but also knowing that you're probably going to have some resistance, and some things aren't going to feel that comfortable. And growth, as I said, is change, and it is sometimes hard. It's hard for me to do that too. I take part in a mental health discipline called recovery, and it has a little saying that it likes people to remember, people who have anxiety issues like I do. And the saying is, we nervous people don't like change. It's just to remember that change brings up anxiety. And nervous people don't like that. But if you know that, you can predispose yourself to that, and then it doesn't stop you as much. You just know that, okay, anxiety is going to come up, and I'm just going to walk through it. And A Course in Miracles has a wonderful teaching about that I've said many, many times. But I need to say it many, many more times because it's so important to me. It says, yet God can bring you there if you are willing to follow the Holy Spirit through seeming terror, trusting Him not to abandon you and leave you there, for it is not His purpose to frighten you, but only yours, only your purpose to frighten yourself. You are severely tempted to abandon Him at the outside ring of fear, but He would lead you safely through and far beyond. So for following the Holy Spirit's guidance, we're growing, we're changing, we're healing, and it takes us through that place where sometimes things get a little scary, and you're just encountering your own resistance. But we have to trust the Holy Spirit and keep walking through the seeming terror. But the important thing for me here, and I see this happen all the time, is the severe temptation to abandon the guidance of the Holy Spirit as soon as that fear comes up, or at the outside ring of that fear. And that's what we absolutely have to encounter and face. We have to be willing not to abandon the Holy Spirit's guidance and walk through that outside ring of fear, even though it may be terrifying. It doesn't just say, you may be a little nervous. It says it's terror. And I think, we just need to take that in and realize that following this path of healing, yes, it's a path of love and joy and peace and light, but there are certain times when it's a scary path to go on. We trust. We go through it. I think one of the ways that people resist these messages that are found in A Course in Miracles, and I've been encountering this on the Facebook group that I administrate, which is a large Facebook group. And people, there was a discussion going on this past week about people thinking that A Course in Miracles is written in a complex, convoluted way. And that's why it's so hard to understand. And somebody was saying that A Course in Miracles is really written at a doctoral level. And that's why, again, it's so hard to understand. And I countered that. See, because I don't actually think A Course in Miracles is written at a doctoral level. All the quotes that I just read, they use really simple words that we all know. The sentence structure is really not all that complicated. It isn't really jargon that you have to, be schooled in order to understand. I really think anybody with a basic, maybe 7th or 8th grade English education can probably understand the words and the sentences that are in A Course in Miracles. But I think we have this rap in this conversation that says it's complex to understand and it's convoluted. But I don't think it's hard to understand. I think it's hard to accept. It's just hard to accept. It's hard to accept that there's no outside world. It's hard to accept that we're all one. It's hard to accept that there's only life. It's hard to accept that we're actually eternal and infinite when we seem so limited. And that's what's hard about A Course in Miracles, not the particular words that it says. The Course says, think not that happiness is ever found by following a road away from it. This makes no sense and cannot be the way. Pretty simple to understand. To you who seem to find this course too difficult to learn, let me repeat that to achieve a goal, you must proceed in its direction, not away from it, and every road that leads the other way will not advance the purpose to be found. If this is difficult to understand, then is this course impossible to learn, but only then, for otherwise it is a simple teaching in the obvious. Course in Miracles just told us that it's a simple teaching in the obvious, and it is not difficult to understand. And what it was telling us to do is just keep walking the path that the Holy Spirit is guiding you to walk. That's the path to happiness. Just keep taking one step after the other. That's what the paragraph said. Now, how complicated is that to understand? It's not complicated to understand. It's a little difficult to do, especially when we're walking those steps and the Holy Spirit seems to be leading us in a way that's scary, that's terrifying. But all we really got to do is to keep walking on those steps and not abandon the guidance of the Holy Spirit just when things start to get a little scary. You know, I remembered recently my own history and how I got involved with the Course in Miracles and how I began to study things that were spiritual. And I was like, well, what was the motivation to that? Where did that come from? And it actually happened probably right after I graduated from college. And I was, 21 or so. And I just was reading some things that were interesting. And I got the message from these things that I was reading that there is a power in the universe, a spiritual power, a divine power, and that it can be tapped into. And maybe we all should be tapping into it because it's a great force for change and healing and growth and light and love. And I just got the message that I wanted to find out about that because I wanted to tap into that spiritual power. Not for egoic reasons, but for truly wonderful spirit-guided reasons. I wanted to tap into that power because I knew that power was important and it would be an important, potent force for change and growth in my life. And that's what I did. And that's what I have continued to do for all these years, ever since I was about 21 years old. And it's been an interesting road. And it's been great in so many ways, but it has been challenging. Growth is challenging because I've had to walk right through my own fears. And I have fears, and my fears come up, and they manifest, and they seem to manifest out there in the world. And I still have to just keep following my guidance. I have to follow that road that Holy Spirit has set for me. There really isn't any other choice. Course in Miracles says, you who are sometimes sad and sometimes angry, who sometimes feel your just due is not given you, and your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt, give up these foolish thoughts. They are too small and meaningless to occupy your holy minds an instant longer. Okay, once again, there's nothing particularly complex or doctoral about that statement. Those are all, pretty simple English words. But they speak to me in a very profound way. Because as I walk this road that Holy Spirit wants me to walk, I am sometimes angry. And I am sometimes having the feeling that my just due isn't being given to me, and my best efforts that I make don't get appreciated. And in fact, people even hate me for them. I mean, exactly what that says, but then it tells me the instruction. It says, give up those foolish thoughts. Those thoughts are actually foolish. And the challenge of growth is to really recognize those anger thoughts, those thoughts about lack of appreciation and even contempt. I'm still dealing with people who have contempt with me from the presentation in Las Vegas. I had another email this morning. So, I mean, it's still happening. And I think about it, and then I think about this line, and this is the challenge of growth, to just keep walking through these things. And sometimes you get confused, but then about what to do. But then I again remember that A Course in Miracles acknowledges that and predisposes us to that and tells us that that is indeed what's going to happen. It says, you will make many concepts of the self as learning goes along, and each one will show the changes in your relationships as your perception of yourself is changed. There will be some confusion every time there is a shift. But be you thankful that the learning of the world is loosening its grasp upon your mind. So there's always some confusion every time we advance, every time we grow, every time we change, every time we shift up to another level, confusion is there. And all those things are the challenge of growth. And we need to be aware of all those things so that we do not abandon the guidance of the Holy Spirit, so that we actually don't stand at the branch, at the fork in the road, not going one way or another. That we actually do what Holy Spirit guides us to do, and that we keep walking down that road to happiness. And that's the simple A Course in Miracles teaching. It's really not a complex teaching. You don't need a doctorate to study and read in A Course in Miracles. Anybody with basic English skills can read it. And I just want to end with saying, like, just how proud of myself I am for following that path all those years, but how proud of all of you that I truly am for doing the work that you do, and how proud I am. And our members who are over there at the booth at the Castro Street Fair. It rained a little on them. On every parade, a little rain must fall. So I'm just proud of all of us, and I'm proud of all of you out there in YouTube land, and I'm proud of all those people listening or who will be listening via Pal Talk on ACIM Gather. I'm proud of all the things that all of us, A Course in Miracles people do to confront these things, to embrace these teachings, and to really work through the challenges of growth that we all are working through and are walking through and are healing the world because of the work that we do. That's my talk for today. Thank you very much.